Hello, everybody. Welcome to Manchester Pride Conference. We're really excited to be here, and we are discussing the power of being an ally. And I'm very lucky to have two fabulous. I'm going to introduce them because they've got some. I don't want to give you a title. I just want to introduce you, and people can decide what they might call you. First of all, I'm going to introduce Jill Nolda, who is known as many things, one being an actress, and she's performed in theatre, in musicals I read about in Oliver and Les Mis, and recently been in a film called Finding Your Feet as one of the dancers. Jill is also a HIV and AIDS activist and was very prevalent during the 80s, where they were a fundraiser and a campaigner doing cabaret shows, which we might talk a little bit more about, and also visiting HIV patients in hospital during that time. There also happened to be a friend of Russell T Davies, which kind of has its benefits every now and then. When anybody who's seen the fabulous It's a Sin might recognise Jill as playing the mother of the character Jill Baxter, and that character was actually based upon Jill. So we're really excited to have you here, Jill.
It's very exciting to be here. It really is. It's amazing.
And we were slightly worried that you didn't have your cat's eye glasses, weren't we?
When I saw the both of you, I thought, oh no, like I've really missed out on a bit of glamour here.
And next, I would like to introduce the wonderful Sadie Sinner, who I have the pleasure of knowing a little bit and having worked with. And Sadie Sinner is the founder and curator of the wonderful The Cocoa Butter Club. They are a creative powerhouse, and they are also the production and entertainment manager of UK Black Pride. So they are very busy. So we're all here today to talk about the power of being an ally. And I thought, just to kick us off, because this is going to be more of a conversation than me leading it, I have got some prompts here, but I think we're going to have lots to talk about. So I just thought maybe we should just start off with talking about an experience that we've had where we've experienced the power of being an ally, because I feel like that's the name of tonight's show. So maybe if we kind of start with that, because I'm really interested in where we're going to go after that. So I thought we'd start off with that. Anybody who'd like to kind of...
Well, it's even an interesting phrase, that says that the power of being an ally. I think in one way it opens doors to finding more allies. You become part of quite a powerful group of people if you link yourself and you stand up for something, or you're involved in something. So as far as that goes, I would feel that there's power in it, in opening doors and gaining support, and finding a lot of love and friendship and that kind of thing. So just touching the surface, I know, but it's, just that phrase makes me think of that, really.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump on that then. If we look at it in that way, then the power of being an ally is the secret power to unlocking the world. Basically, if we can all constantly employ that compassion within ourselves to stand up for, to defend, to support, to amplify the voices of not only people who share our own intersectionality, but people who are people who we may other from ourselves. I say it like this because I think that's the way the world is meant to be. It's such a funny notion of me to be an ally. Because surely it's what we all are. But if an ally can exist then, and make it a bit pop culture, some people are just ops, which is that they are just opposites. They're not going to be there to stand up and to support and defend. So I guess that's why we even need to acknowledge the term ally. But I just find that so bizarre, because it should be how we move.
That and that is exactly what the sort of thing that I was saying in the beginning, when we were just having a little this chat, only very briefly, but it doesn't seem, you don't feel like, oh, I'm an ally, or oh, I need an ally. It's just part of life. And when you love and care for people, or if you and also if you believe something, then it kind of just happens, and then I find somebody else calls you an ally. I wouldn't have called myself an ally, but I'm proud of that title. I really like it. I think it feels quite powerful. You know, it feels quite powerful, and it feels that you can make things happen, and that's a nice feeling.
I definitely agree, and I think really there is that echoing bit what Sadie said as well. I do feel like it's an opportunity to change the world. You know,
Wow,
it's your little. It's like a little gift that arrives, and I think we have to really. If there are people out here that are thinking, oh, I'd really like to be an ally, but it's like I feel like I could market being an ally quite easily. Because I've had the experience when people have been allies to me, and I think it's kind of wanting to bring people with you. I feel like there's two sides. Something I'd like to throw out quite early. I feel like when you're kind of in the market of needing an ally, like I started this campaign, Stand By Your Trans, which has t-shirts, and I know we're going to come to Jill's t-shirt in a bit.
Yes.
But this campaign was started quite early on for me. I did a show and I did a version of the song Stand By Your Man, and I changed it to Stand By Your Trans. And it was 6 or 7 years ago, and the landscape of being trans was quite different then. I couldn't find many trans performers. And so I kind of stepped back on stage and made a show called Big Girls Blouse about my experience of growing up in the 70s and being a trans kid when no one knew what being trans was. And I decided to have a moment at the end. I wanted to rally people at the end. So music is, you know, an amazing rallier of people. And I had a flash mob of choirs coming on stage and joining me with their Stand By Your Trans t-shirts on. And I know that kind of left that ringing in people's heads as they left. There was this like call to action to go and stand by your trans. And I had some people that come up to me and said they actually knew trans people in their workplace, and they physically went over and stood by them and started to chat to them. So it was something very simple, very direct, that you kind of woke people up in a kind of entertainment way. And I feel like, but still the story behind that call to action was me feeling like my community was vulnerable, tired, depressed, outside, othered. You know, there is the one side of why you need an ally because of stigma, prejudice. And then there is this other side where we think, you know, we want to work with our gatekeepers. We want to kind of change the world. You know, we want to bring people along. We believe that together we are stronger. You know, we want to challenge the norm, shake things up, be a bit radical. There's all that. I feel like there's two sides of allyship for me, and I just kind of want to throw that out. And
I think what you did, I think that just your t-shirt and the idea of it is absolutely brilliant. And I think if you can create sort of, well, you say music is inspirational, but then it clicks into people. People think about it for the first time. Sometimes people haven't even given that a thought in their lives, and so it's getting that out there like that in a fun and entertaining way is definitely the way to you know, open doors and change the world. As you know, it does make a change. I mean, you notice what's happening for the trans community, and I think it's actually brilliant.
I am going to take a slightly different approach to answering that by way of I don't think it's possible to alienate allies. Because if the true intent is to support the group that is other from themselves, then it would be like a radical intent, and it would happen at any, it would happen in any way. And whilst I understand why we need to have palatable phrases, but it's something that basically the violence in which, let's take the discourse of trans bodies, the violence in which trans bodies experience, the violence in which Black bodies experience, the violence in which, like at the moment, we're seeing a rise in Asian hate crimes towards the Asian community as well. And I know the purpose of these phrases such as Black Lives Matter, Trans Lives Matter, or all trans lives. What it is for me is it feels sometimes like an injustice to reduce it to 3 catchy words. But I know that softness is needed, because the thing about othering is people think that you're so othered that you don't feel like them. They don't think that you have the same experiences. They wouldn't think that you've experienced heartbreak, or that a word would hurt you or something. So basically, and maybe to people who are watching this, they'll just think about that, because maybe I have no more of a point than that, which is yes, I want everyone to be welcomed into feeling they can be an ally, but I also don't want it to be conditional. I want allyship to be radical. I want when the Black community tells you, so the Black queer community tells you, oh, actually you can't use that language, I don't want it to be like, well, I'm trying to be an ally for you. I want it to say, you know what, you're totally right. And as you were speaking, if you don't mind, I have 3 words for us: advocate, activist, and ally, because the 3 of them are not the same thing at all. And so I was looking online a little bit, and the role of an advocate is to listen and then to action. Whereas the role of an activist is actually to talk for, like to speak on behalf of. And then it got me thinking about, so then what is an ally? And I guess an ally, it really is to support. And that's different from speaking on behalf of. Yes. So actually, bringing it just all my thoughts at once. So maybe when we look at Kate's Stand By Your Trans shirt, like that is true allyship, because you're not speaking over anybody else to do it. You are literally just a walking testament that you are a radical lover of these people that have been othered.
Sure. I think that as well, I think what you might be thinking as well is that if you've got like a slogan, sort of like Stand By Your Trans or like Black Lives Matter, it can trivialize things a little bit. It just becomes part of one banner, and you don't want it to be trivialized, but you want it to be out there so more people think about it, because people will go about their daily lives and never consider those things. And so it just sort of, it gets the publicity, it gets it out there for the moment. And then I think the job of people, if we can, is to then say, think more deeply, it's not just about singing like Stand By Your Trans or something that is so lovely. It's such a lovely quick thought, but it only scratches the surface of the true.
And it's changed as well. I think it's more nuanced. I think there's a nuance to allyship that maybe, and also we're moving at a pace. Our communities are, by the time an ally, if you like, might have caught up, our communities that kind of were looking for that allyship have kind of, they've shifted on, and we're fluid and we're kind of evolving all the time. And I felt like that during like last year with Black Lives Matter. We have a trans arts festival, trans creative called Trans Vegas, and we had an event planned, a rally, and then because of Black Lives Matter we changed it to a Black Lives Matter rally. And so we worked with our Black trans artists and we said, what do you want to see in this rally? We didn't kind of run off and create the rally based on that very political loud voice that was happening. And they said they wanted something really tender and gentle and not to reignite the trauma. So we went off and created that rally kind of on their behalf and checked in with them and was like, how does this look? And they were like, it's beautiful, we're really happy with that. And I felt like that was about listening and about not running off, because I think allies sometimes keen to like, give me the flag, I'm going to run off, and you're like, hold on a minute, So I don't know if there's any thoughts on that in our work that we've done.
Well, that is literally the kind of thing I think that you were saying about that to listen and then to move forward in a way that is beneficial to the actual community, instead of thinking, well, hey, I'm an ally and not really giving it deep consideration. It's lovely if people can. I mean, people sometimes they just can't do that. They come from a different place, but in their heads, I mean, they're coming from something different. So it's up to the communities as well to try to explain and tolerance when people are sort of ignorant of the difficulties and that, because a lot of people just don't know. They just never think about it. I certainly didn't think. In my involvement with AIDS in the 80s, people hadn't heard of it. They didn't. Only now people are realising what even people who were around at the time, not just the young people didn't even realise then what people were going through, and no one was shouting out that they had AIDS. Well, there was a few very brave people who were, but generally people weren't. So you have to, I think you have to have those bold and brave people and slogans and things to actually start the change, and then maybe listen more carefully as things.
You're completely right. By way of, it's not just enough to know the phrase, but to understand what each of those words mean when we actually are saying it. So again, if we just use a really tangible example of Kate's t-shirt, like stand and stand by, not stand on top of, not stand beneath, like stand by. And then also take community ownership, take claim over that person, allow them into your village. You know, and I guess that is the part I want when someone does see Black Lives Matter to not just be like, oh, Black Lives Matter, because now it's even conflated with so many negative connotations.
Oh, my word,
and all it's really saying is my life matters as well. Yes, I wanted to also, oh my gosh, I'm loving this conversation so much, basically. Thank you. You were saying about the event with Trans Creative, and actually, yeah, let's look back at the Black Lives Matter summer, as we call it, of 2020, which again, like that's even, in my eyes, that's so sad that that's a thing, and it will be remembered as like the Black Lives Matter summer of 2020. It will be trivialized into that, because for how big it was, not enough has come from it, not enough has been sustained. And that's the problem. It was too much of a flash in the pan. So yeah, let's look at allies who did events. I actually spent last summer, lots of people were like, oh my God, it's amazing. I spent last summer shouting at a lot of white people because what they love to do, because my company is to support performers of colour, is I was inundated with emails. Do you have any performers who can perform at our fundraiser for free? We're raising money for Black Lives Matter. My response was like, sorry, so why doesn't our Black Lives Matter? Do you understand what Black Lives Matter is? It's not just about the 3 bodies that you may have heard were killed by police brutality. It means also my Black life in the classroom next to you. I matter as well. And I was met with so much upset because people would say, I'm just trying to make a fundraiser. I'm just trying to make a fundraiser. And I was like, okay, but what are you doing? And they said, I'm raising money for Black people. And I was like, so then why must other Black people be involved in the giving up of their resources? You don't know how many of us have made our rent. If we already know statistically that we're going to have less on the pound than other ethnicities. So basically that was an example of allies just really running for it and actually not being advocates because they didn't listen and they didn't action. And almost when I asked them, you know, are you really being an ally? Because what's your goal at the end of the day? Is it to say you made this event or to raise the awareness? Like, is it your name that needs to be attached to it? And I would interrogate people's practices and I'd say, okay, so your company's called the Spice Girls. Why don't you not have the Spice Girls at the front of the banner? Why don't you say this show has been facilitated by or completely produced by, but all funds go to those who are performing? Basically just like really interrogating our allyship and just takes it back to you can't really alienate allies. And my personal experience of last summer was quite disappointing in the lack of listening, but the desire of people wanting to do something good, which is just that intent and what actually happens, you know, sometimes it doesn't balance each other out.
Well, I think it's so important. I'm still trying to listen to things that pertaining to Black Lives Matter and still trying to understand where people's stories and the enormity of it, because it's an incredible movement and it's got so much behind it that I think people have got a lot to learn, and I really feel that. I think, you know, because you never think if you always think, oh, you know, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm very broad-minded, and then you think and you listen to what other people are saying, you think, wow, you know, I didn't know that. Or that is with Black Lives Matter particularly, I think it's a massive learning curve for our whole country. That's just what I feel, and I am learning on a daily basis about what people have been through and what they've endured and stuff that I didn't know. I mean, can't claim to have known it. I know there's prejudice out there, but you know, I can't believe sometimes the nuances of those prejudices, and that's an incredible. That's what Black Lives Matter is bringing to this country, and I think it's great for that reason.
I think there's something about as well for me about allyship. You know, when you invite a community, whether they're HIV, you know, Black, trans, to just sit down for a minute. You know, you almost say, would you like to sit down for a minute? You know, forward, or that creativity forward, or, you know, I think there's a lot of, for me, I spend a lot of time like going to arts organisations, because I'm going to talk about the arts because that's what I'm involved in as well. And I think Sadie is, and I know that you are as well. So we're all involved in that business. And I think, sadly for me, like since I set up Trans Creative, and I was very inspired by a talk that Sadie did the other day. I've taken lots of notes that have Sadie's pushed open doors and almost like, why aren't you putting this work on stage? And that's taken me a while to adopt, because I spent a lot of time waiting for arts organisations to embrace what we were doing and hoping and trying to do the right thing. But I've changed now that I expect them, really, as an arts organisation, as an ally, to stand by us, is to really like listen and really go, we are really lacking, actually. There is very little trans work, and why isn't trans work getting through the doors? You know, rather than me having to constantly tell them why trans, or sell the idea of trans work. I think that's where the tiring bit comes in. And I know there is work, and we were listening to Hot Brown Honey's talk the other day as well on a panel, as well as Sadie, and there is very much like you kind of have to adopt something. It's like you have to wake your allies up sometimes. They might be quite passive, and they know there's something they should be doing there, and you literally have to bang open the door and go, if you want to be an ally, this is what we need. So I'm kind of excited by that. That's
great though. That is great, because then sometimes people don't know what to do, and then that opens a door for them, you know, and especially with trans, which is really gaining ground. All that stuff is gaining ground so much, and it's a very
you think it is, and then you're not sure.
Then then
maybe from the outside it looks like it is, and then when you're in the business, you're like, is it gaining ground? Like politically, we're going a bit backwards, and then, you know, the violence is still there. And you're like, so it's probably like HIV. You know, you think, oh great, Lady Diane's shaken the hand of somebody in hospital in the 80s, 90s. Great, we've moved forward. So people believe we've moved forward. And like someone like you, who's really in that world, probably goes, are you kidding me?
Well, I can tell you for a fact that there's people that do not want to divulge their HIV status today. They just don't want to do that, and you can't take that stigma away. The stigma is deep rooted, and because it's sexually transmitted, or in one of the ways is sexually transmitted, that is always going to have a little bit of a background story, a little bit of, oh, okay, so, but even in spite of all the openness that It's a Sin has brought about, you know, I've got friends personal to me that, you know, go, oh, I still don't really feel like sort of telling my employers, or if I'm writing about something and don't mention my name on that, or, you know, so it's quite incredible. The people aren't out and up there like you could say, oh, I'm diabetic, oh, I'm struggling with chemotherapy or something. They just want to keep it in the background and not mention it. So it's definitely still a struggle, and that's just the UK. Before you go to some other countries in the world where, you know, even the sexuality of gay men and the illegality and all of that. It's a minefield as well. Gosh, there's a lot of problems.
So many. I mean, I'm sitting here looking at us because we also like sit on the intersections of each other, but I'm like, you know, if we need to, for the sake of this discussion, just be very reductive and be like, my goodness, actually, I could say the same for like Black people. As in like, everyone thinks, oh, Black Lives Matter, surely everything is better now. But it's not the case. Like each of us, if we say just really reductively that we're kind of representing something here today, that because we've seen it in okay, so I wanted to mention, okay, Jill, meeting you is like, And this is because, so my family's from Zambia. My mum is an activist. Ever since I was young, she has opened up an orphanage for children who are orphaned by HIV and AIDS.
Oh, wow.
And it's been a complete part of my discourse from when I was very young. So much so that I kind of wrote at last World AIDS Day that when I was younger, I used to think people with AIDS had like superpowers because of the way in which she would speak about, you know, these people that we need to support. And so like speaking with you and just knowing that because it's just very real. It's just so real. And even when I was watching It's a Sin, I was like, I feel a bit emotional speaking to you now, so I won't drag it on too much. But when I thought about all the gay men that I love, that are my brothers and sisters and siblings, and how we used to rule Soho in 2014 and such, and I thought to myself, I don't know, your story was just really, really important. Because I just wrote a note here that sometimes when we want to be allies, we don't know we're welcomed into the group that we want to support. Because the world sometimes feels like a pie, you know, so it's a bit like, I want to stand up and represent you, and it's like, okay, well, I don't need you speaking for me, because then where does my voice get to be in it? But I was just really affected by your legacy and what you did and your radical allyship, because that's what I meant in my first comment, when that's what I've been raised to believe we should do for the world.
It's amazing. I mean, and there's the influence as well is you know, Russell in his writing and how he can in 5 episodes really move people's hearts. You know, that is completely due to his interpretation. But it is amazing that you know, something you never saw coming, the influence it would have. And so I think has been a force for good so far. It's a real force for good. It's really raised awareness. It's caused more HIV testing, and it's opened doors for fundraising. And as soon as lockdown is out, you know, we're out and mixing with people, there will be opportunities for raising money. Talk
about fundraising, and this might be a nice moment to bring in your T-shirt.
I wore it today. This is the first time. It's my La T-shirt. It took a long time for me to get it because there's such a backlog with the Terence Higgins Trust. You know, that there was it's raised. That little slogan has raised. There's a short, sort of trivial little slogan that has managed to raise the best part of £500,000 for the Terence Higgins Trust. So, and that will, on the side of what Sadie's saying about thinking deeper, that will enable them to educate a lot of people and you know, help people to live better with HIV and to get tested and stuff and feel more secure about being tested, and you know, and that's just in again, I say just in this country, because you're saying like about your mother's charity concerns in Zambia and right across Africa. I mean, I've had dealings with South Africa, so not far from the border, but never into Zambia. You know, our charity has involved itself raising funds and dealing with South Africa quite a bit, because they've got a colossal number of AIDS patients and orphans and lack of treatment, and the treatment is available but not the people to you know, mobilize it and make people understand the need to take it properly. And it's such a colossal, I mean, and now in the middle of COVID and everything is more medical challenges, you know, it's quite extraordinary.
Jill, may I just say about the La T-shirt? So you made such a good point when you're like, it also sits in the like trivial like little slogan thing, but dare I say, this one feels different because we all have the emotional connection to it, because to know what La means you had to watch the show, and that means you watched the entire arc, so you grieved as well. So I would like to think that anyone who starts to wonder why we're all wearing La T-shirts this summer, they may not understand it, but because we have felt it's an emotional trigger for, like, we do know what it means. And maybe also that is the issue with the thing that I was saying before, is that when you're part of the group that knows what it means, what those words really mean, you comprehend it in a different way. Your T-shirt is extraordinary. I can't wait to get one.
I think I love it. I couldn't see it taking off like that, but it really has been a lovely thing.
I want one. They're lovely. They've got, and it's great when they hit a mark. I know there's all that you said, like the collectiveness of it, but there's also nice when it's a fashion hit too. That is also
Fabulous.
very good. We love that. I was just going to touch something briefly, just because this is Manchester Pride Conference, and something that I do when I am I'm very lucky that I get to stand up in front of lots of people. One of the events I do is Manchester Vigil, which is to 5,000 people, HIV Vigil. And over the years, I've been very lucky to curate that. And I really see it as a celebration of life. So I go out there and it's about celebrating life, because the reason we all feel so sad and emotional sometimes is because we know that people have lost their life. So it's about celebrating life, and that's why we feel so sad when people's lives end. That's what I believe anyway, and that's how I program it. But something I always do in that, I always kind of get everyone shout out the LGBT, and I get them shout out fabulous, and I kind of make sure that, and that certain groups, when they shout it out, like the T's, it's always a bit quieter, the B's, the G's are always so loud. So loud. And the L's are a little bit quieter. So I it's like a little like, clapometer we used to have kind of on some kind of quiz programs. It's kind of, you can gauge a bit of the numbers and the visibility and the confidence of certain LGBT people within those groups. Yeah. So I always really encourage people to feel fabulous about whatever letter you are, but also I always ask people, wherever you are, choose another letter or another couple of letters to champion. That's all you have to do. So I'm a huge bi champion and a lesbian champion, because I feel like lots of reasons they are underrepresented, they're a bit less visible. So that is something really simple that I do, and it always goes down really well. And people, I think the simplicity sometimes, if you can find a way to get people to be an ally in a really simple way, like with Sadie, I feel like turning up to your shows, you would come out a better ally. I mean, I can't imagine, and it's such I can't imagine not coming out of there feeling like, I get it, And just how do we kind of go out? How do we hook people in? Because there is a power in being an ally, but what's the power and the magic of hooking people in?
It's that part completely. So one of their slogans when BuzzFeed came to write about the Cocoa Butter Club, and they put their article out, they made sure to put at the top, everybody is welcome, because that's a nuance that people don't seem to get, which is the ultimate, like a kind of a practice of allyship. Again, allyship requires you to be radical. It requires you to be brave, right? It requires you to acknowledge your privilege and to walk up, knock on a door and say, hey, I think someone might listen to me if I do this thing for you. I want to support you. Like, how can I get more people to listen? I think I might have some of the qualities that people listen to more because of whatever reason. And when we put together the Cocoa Butter Club, we realized that actually it needs to be a celebration, because similarly to how you say your vigil is a celebration of life, the Cocoa Butter Club is not a reprimanding of white people who believe in tokenism or do not book bodies of color. It's a celebration of bodies of colour. It's a completely different discussion. And it lets everyone know that everyone is welcome, because anyone can celebrate bodies of colour, not just bodies of colour. It's just that you are celebrating bodies of colour. That's why those are the people that are on the stage.
And Jill, for you, like in terms of the work you were doing, how did you gather your allies? When you were going into hospitals, when you were fundraising, doing those cabaret shows, just what was your kind of, I mean, you were in this business with us, you were in the show business.
The show business, and that's, and
it helps, doesn't it?
I totally, completely, it helps to be moving in artistic and creative communities, because you feel it in your own head, you think, okay, well, we are very tolerant, and I said that in the beginning, and then you could question how tolerant, and you could go into all the nuances, but I didn't really hesitate to think that people would support and perform and help to raise funds. I didn't really, without knowing that so-and-so had AIDS, it still became a cause, because Broadway, the theatre in Broadway had suffered so greatly and people were dying within shows. So, people definitely rallied because of that. And I think that we did try a little within our community to extend our fundraising occasionally to include another charity if we could, because we were aware as well, not everybody is suffering with AIDS, people have other problems. There's people with cancer, there's people with MS, there's people with Parkinson's, there's people have all sorts in their families. So it's trying, I thought and felt like, yes, we can get support, and we can also, we are fundraising for AIDS, but we can include you, we can try and do something and make a donation I think we try, again, it's just trying to be broad-minded about it, but the theatre community were on it in the 80s. They really rallied and helped, and that's where I found that we could fundraise. It was a colossally successful body of people, because you're going to perform and people are going to pay for that amongst ourselves as well, and people outside. If we did a late night show of the proper show like Crazy for You, or one of the big shows, the Phantom of the Opera or something, they could do Chicago, do an actual late night performance. That's open to anybody, and then you can put the information in the programme. You can put a little bit about AIDS and HIV, and just getting it out there and bringing the ordinary public in, as opposed to the late night cabarets, which are kind of a little bit in-house for friends and friends, like as if people like yourselves and people in the know, but not just people off the street. Yeah. So yeah, I think the creative arts as a whole is a good ally for fundraising and tolerance, but I know there will be problems within that as well, but I think it's a good starting point for reaching out.
There's something about singing it out as well, isn't it? There is something intrinsically proud and loud.
And there's so many songs which have such heart, and so many songs which have, words about love, which can pertain to love of one person or love of a group of people, and then it touches your heart. And then, if you can, people, when people within a show that are struggling, then it is heartbreaking at sometimes, heartbreakingly sad at some points.
That's that thing though of there's a healing side to it as well, and coming together as a collective. But I totally agree about the collective. I just thought, I'm aware that we've kind of got a little bit more time left, but not loads, sadly. I just wondered if we just this is a conference, people are kind of tuning in, it's like, and we're coming from kind of different standpoints, but with kind of learning from each other about how we see allyship. But what would you kind of want from an ally? If there was somebody standing in front of you, there's this group hopefully tuning in to the conference, and they want to be ally, just to refresh that, like what if we could make a few requests to them, what would it be?
Well, for me, I think it would be that I've learned from Sadie now to take the time to really think about it and then join a cause. But if you are going to try and join, really try and do something. Really try and enter into the spirit of it, and really try and educate yourself and be part of a community if you can. That's what I would like to say to people. Try and understand from what I'm talking about specifically, which is AIDS and HIV, that this can be anybody can get this, and people need support and care.
Thank you so much, Jill. I would say that if you want to be there, if someone's an ally in front of me, I would say, first of all, and UK Black Pride say this, nothing about us without us. So if you're having a meeting, there better be someone from the community that you're hoping to be allies from in that room as well. Because being an ally means that you are giving up your power, and you are going to politically become the identity that I am. So a great example of this really quickly is there was a burlesque performer who decided to write about the underrepresentation of Black burlesque bodies. And basically when they put this article out, they were actually met with lots of anger from other white burlesque performers. And instead of standing by their article that they had put together, what did they do? They went and deleted it, because they weren't prepared to politically become Black. Like nothing else, they would have walked out of their house and been treated the same. But just amongst their own group of friends, they weren't prepared for their friends to treat them how their friends treat the people that they were claiming to be an ally of.
Wow.
And we cannot have, there's no space for it, because there's no extra, there is finite amount of food in the pot. Like I can't feed you if you're gonna abandon us. Like, I need to know that you're here for the full thing, even when it gets very uncomfortable, and even when you're being told it's not your time to speak. You need to listen, and that's it. And that's a hurtful feeling, because when we feel like, I'm trying to help you, but silence is very powerful.
Yeah.
Sure.
So those would be my things.
There is something about acknowledging positions as well. You know, the intersectionality. I think for me, as a trans person, probably following on from that, I like people to put themselves in the gender soup with me, that we're all swimming about. You know, like they'll go, as a cis person, and I love it that they know what that means. So I don't have to explain that what a cisgendered person is, or trans. You know, if I don't have to do, like sometimes I do, people ask me to come and like, will you come and do some training about being an ally? And often I kind of get people to get their phones out and I say, type in how to be an ally and look at all that information there. So what I need you to do is kind of go and do some of that, really, you know. But I like it when people put themselves in the position of you not being othered. For me, an ally is when I don't feel othered. I feel like we're collectively trying to work this out. I'm over here as a trans person, you're over there as a cis person, but we are trying to work this out. I have this experience, you have that experience. I'm trying to do this. What can we do together? I feel like that's when the magic happens, when there is something about being humble, listening, learning, getting your hands a bit dirty.
Yes.
You know, it can be messy, taking criticism, being corrected, like, you know, slightly pulled up and dragged into that new terminology. You know, those are the things that work for me, but also to bring your ideas and your energy. I think allies, when they bring their ideas and their energy, because you might be worn out. I think we maybe have all had that experience when we're a little bit tired of saying the same thing. And if somebody can stand up and say that in a different way or have a new way of doing it, and there are gatekeepers out there. There are people who are gatekeepers financially, you know, politically, and you know, those are the allies I'm very interested really interested in sometimes. But I can't seem to get in the rooms with them. We spend a lot of time with us talking about lack of representation of trans work in the arts. I'm like, why are we all talking to each other about that? Where are the people who actually program these amazing spaces? I want to chat to them. So I think we also have to be aware to really go out and hunt those allies as well sometimes, you know, get them up to speed as well. So there's a bit of that.
It's amazing what you say about just that. It does happen when you've got two people in the room and you can come together. That I think that's exactly, it's what Sadie said in the beginning, isn't it? It's when it's you know, so it's what the world should be like.
Yes.
What you said in the beginning, this is, you can't
no ally
be
alienated
for it.
I think, yeah, no ally should feel no ally.
Yes, yeah. It's not possible to alienate an ally.
Yes, I love that. I think that's what people should go away with. Like, if you're an ally, you're not alienated. You're in the soup.
Yeah.
You're in it. We're swimming around, and
that's part of a discussion of how to make things happen and how to make things get better without feeling like, you know, you're treading on anyone's toes, or you're feeling like, you know, somebody is, like you said, that expression of being othered, you know. So, but no, here we are in a group of people and somebody's feeling a little bit like they're not getting their fair, you know, say in society, or your work isn't out there and you're feeling excluded, and so that's up to a community to make that happen. And I think that's another thing that I would say, it's up to everybody to make it happen, because sometimes people get protective about their own community, don't they? Like a white man's community, for instance, you know, that they feel like, okay, we're not understood anymore. There's a lot of talk like that around, and you think, okay, but now people are coming forward that have had problems and been othered for years, and so it's their turn to be heard. You've got to listen so that we can all work in this together, because, you know, that's how I feel. I'm trying to understand the stuff that people are struggling with, because, you know, we struggled a lot in the 80s, but things have moved forward a lot.
I think it's also being able to hear how we've moved forward. You know, that nuance I talked about before. So we're not stuck in victim and the minority, you know, like, so we've actually, look what we've achieved, look what we do. This is why Black Lives Matter, because it's this and this, you know. It's like it's moving it on from what I think some of it is challenging. What allies have to do sometimes is step over that
Yeah.
Some that have been around for a long time. They haven't caught up. They're not as it. I sometimes say to people, what I would most like you to do when you meet a trans person, be excited for them.
Oh.
Yeah.
And that blows their mind. Like, oh, I didn't know. Am I allowed to be? Yeah, just add that into the mix. Like, don't think it's all doom and gloom, because some people are like, oh God, I'm so sorry to hear that. It's no, it's not. It's great. And I sometimes just say that. Be excited. I used to make a joke and go, if you want to be a really good ally, take a trans person out for a date. Do you know what I mean? Have sex with them. Do you know what I mean? and then a lot of my trans community now, like, we don't want cis people to be sleeping with us. We're doing T on T now. So I think I try and be playful, but really try and break it down so it's not precious, it's not fragile. We need some robustness as well when we're dealing with some of the issues we're dealing with, because as you say, Sadie, we have to be radical and brave.
Yes.
And you listening to you two as well, you're being brave on behalf of people that can't be brave, because not everybody is brave enough to stand up there and do that stuff. And so I think it's amazing when people are brave enough to do it, because I think that you pave the way then for people who can't, or are not so eloquent, or have different issues that they
have
feel.
such nice glasses.
We
pay, but for some people they don't have the eyewear.
No,
really.
I'm never coming to another one of these eyewear, I'm telling you.
Next time we see you, Jill, you'll just have them.
Yeah.
There are some in this house somewhere. There's some in this house that light up. I know there are, but I can't find them.
I have really enjoyed this conversation, panel, whatever you call it. I hope people out there have enjoyed. There's a lot of years of experience and strength and hope and gone into some of the stuff that we've talked about, and I've just really appreciated having the opportunity to talk to you two, and I feel like I'm a bit more clear about what an ally is, and what an ally it's inspired me to go and be a better ally out there as well. So that's my final thoughts. Does anybody want to have any last thoughts, and then we'll wave goodbye?
My last thought is I learned a lot, so that's great.
I have actually learned a little more compassion. It's really easy to be like frustrated and to be like, how much nicer do I need to make this message for you? But through Jill's discourse has actually been like, no, maybe we need to have it as the most softest and most welcoming, because once they're in, then they will stay. Because maybe our allies aren't used to the hardness that we have had to endure. So let us extend super softness to them, even though it may seem counterintuitive, but let us extend it so that we can get them in the room and then teach them how to be as strong as we all clearly are.
So wouldn't that be good? No.
That's a perfect note to end on. Thank you so much. I'm really glad we're part of this conference, and I wish the conference have a brilliant success, and I hope all the other events are amazing. So Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you.